The following is a modern take on the Federalist Papers, brought to you by Bookwave Studios. We've refreshed the language to feel natural and current, while carefully preserving the substance of these important documents. We hope you enjoy this modern revision. A Case for the Constitution. Paper 1, Why This Matters, by Alexander Hamilton. To the people of New York, after clearly seeing how our current government has failed us, you're now being asked to consider a new constitution for the United States. This isn't just some minor political decision. It involves nothing less than the survival of our union, the safety of all Americans, and the future of what could become the most remarkable nation on earth. Many have observed that we Americans face a historic test. Can a society actually create a good government through careful thought and deliberate choice? Or are humans forever doomed to have their governments shaped by accident and violence? If there's any truth to this question, then we're living in the moment when that answer will be determined. Making the wrong choice now could be tragic not just for us, but for all humanity. This perspective should add a sense of responsibility to our patriotism. Every thoughtful citizen must feel deeply invested in the outcome. How wonderful it would be if we could make this choice based purely on what's best for our country, without being distracted by personal interests or local concerns. But that's probably wishful thinking. The proposed Constitution affects too many interests and changes too many local arrangements. The debate will inevitably attract arguments that have nothing to do with the Constitution's actual merits, and will stir up passions and prejudices that cloud our ability to see the truth. Among the strongest opposition will come from those who hold power in state governments and fear losing their influence. There's also another group hoping to take advantage of the chaos. Those who believe they'd have better chances for power if America were divided into several smaller confederacies rather than united under one government. I don't want to dwell on these accusations, though. It would be unfair to dismiss someone's arguments simply because their position might make them biased. Even those with something to gain from opposing the Constitution might still have honorable intentions. Much of the opposition will come from honest mistakes and legitimate concerns. This reminds us that we should be humble in our certainty. Smart, well-meaning people frequently end up on opposite sides of important questions. We should remember this before assuming that only our side has pure motives. After all, ambition, greed, personal grudges, and partisan loyalty can influence supporters of the right cause just as much as those on the wrong side. Even without these reasons for moderation, the fanatical spirit that has always poisoned political movements should be avoided. In politics, as in religion, trying to convert others through force and intimidation is absurd. Persecuting those who disagree rarely changes minds. Despite how reasonable these principles sound, we're already seeing signs that this debate will follow the same ugly pattern as previous national arguments. Angry accusations are flying from both sides. Those advocating for a stronger, more efficient government are being labeled as power-hungry enemies of liberty. Meanwhile, those concerned about protecting individual rights are dismissed as attention seekers willing to sacrifice the public good for popularity. People forget that jealousy often accompanies love, that the passionate defense of liberty can sometimes make us overly suspicious of necessary authority. Equally forgotten is that strong government is essential to protecting liberty, that these interests are inseparable to any reasonable person. A dangerous ambition often hides behind claims of defending the people, rather than behind open support for government power. History shows that the path to tyranny more often starts with flattering the masses than with openly advocating for strong central authority. Most dictators began their careers as supposed champions of the people, only to end as tyrants. Throughout these observations, fellow citizens, I've been trying to warn you against attempts to influence your decision through anything other than honest reasoning. You've probably noticed that I favor the new Constitution. I won't pretend otherwise. After careful consideration, I firmly believe adopting it is in your best interest and essential to your liberty, dignity, and happiness. I'm not hiding my opinions or pretending to still be deciding when I've already made up my mind. I'll openly share my convictions and the reasoning behind them. When intentions are good, there's no need for ambiguity. I won't bore you with endless declarations of my pure motives. You'll have to judge those for yourself. My arguments will be presented openly for everyone to evaluate. While I can't promise to be right about everything, I can promise to make my case honestly and respectfully. In the series of papers to follow, I'll discuss these critical topics: why uniting is vital to our prosperity, why our current confederation fails to maintain that union, why we need a government at least as powerful as the proposed one, how the proposed Constitution aligns with Republican principles, how it resembles your own state constitution, how adopting it will better protect our form of government, our liberty, and our property. As this discussion continues, I'll address all serious objections that arise. Some might think it unnecessary to argue for the benefits of staying united. Surely this belief is deeply held by most Americans and has few opponents. Yet we already hear whispers in private circles that our 13 states are too large for any single system and that we must divide into separate confederacies. This idea will likely spread until it gains enough supporters to be openly advocated. For those who can see the bigger picture, the choice is clear: adopt the new Constitution or watch the Union disintegrate. My next paper will examine the advantages of union and the certain dangers every state will face if we dissolve it. Paper 2, The Danger of Foreign Threats, by John J. To the people of New York, as Americans, you're now facing one of the most important decisions you'll ever make. The consequences will shape our nation for generations. Given what's at stake, it's essential that we approach this decision thoughtfully and consider all angles. Everyone agrees that government is necessary, and that to create one, people must give up some individual freedoms to provide it with the power to function. The real question before us is this: would Americans be better served by being one nation under a single federal government, or by dividing into separate confederacies, each with its own government? Until recently, most people believed our prosperity depended on staying firmly united. Our best citizens have consistently worked toward that goal. But now some politicians claim this view is wrong, arguing we should seek safety and happiness by splitting into separate sovereign confederacies. Though this new position seems extreme, it has gained supporters, even from some who previously opposed it. Whatever arguments have caused these people to change their minds, it would be unwise for Americans to adopt these new ideas without being thoroughly convinced they're based on truth and sound policy. I've often found it remarkable that America isn't made up of scattered, distant territories, but rather one connected, fertile, expansive country. Providence has blessed us with diverse soils and products, watered by countless streams. Navigable waters form a kind of natural border around our edges, while magnificent rivers create convenient highways for trade and communication across our interior. Just as remarkable is how Providence gave this connected land to one united people, descendants of the same ancestors, speaking the same language, practicing the same religion, committed to the same principles of government, sharing similar customs. Together, through shared sacrifice and bloodshed, fighting side by side throughout a long and difficult war, we've established our liberty and independence. This country and its people seem made for each other. It appears that Providence intended this perfect inheritance, so suitable for a band of brothers united by the strongest ties, to remain whole, not fragmented into jealous, hostile mini-states. Up to now, Americans have consistently acted as one nation. Everywhere, citizens enjoy the same rights, privileges, and protections. As a unified country, we've made peace and war. Together, we defeated common enemies. As one nation, we formed alliances, made treaties, and entered into agreements with foreign powers. Recognizing the value of unity, Americans established a federal government early on to preserve it. They created this government almost as soon as they had a political existence, even while their homes were burning, their citizens bleeding, and enemy forces advancing. It's not surprising that a government formed during such chaotic times proved inadequate for its purpose. Our intelligent citizens recognized and regretted these shortcomings. Still committed to both unity and liberty, they saw the immediate threat to our union and the longer-term danger to our freedom. Convinced that only a better-designed national government could adequately protect both, they called for the recent convention in Philadelphia to address these critical issues. This convention, composed of our most trusted citizens, many distinguished by their patriotism and wisdom during the most trying times, took on this difficult challenge. Working during peacetime, with clear minds and without distraction, they spent months in thoughtful, daily deliberation. Free from outside pressure and motivated solely by love of country, they unanimously recommended the plan now before you. This plan is only recommended, not imposed, but it deserves careful, honest consideration, not blind acceptance or rejection. Given the plan's importance, it should receive thorough, impartial examination. But as I mentioned earlier, that's probably wishful thinking. We've seen similar situations before. When well-founded fears of immediate danger led Americans to form the historic Congress of 1774. That body recommended certain measures that proved wise. Yet we all remember how quickly newspapers filled with arguments against those very measures. Government officials protecting their interests, people misjudging the consequences, and those whose ambitions conflicted with the public good all worked tirelessly to persuade people to reject that Congress's advice. Many were fooled, but most Americans reasoned correctly and made the right choice. They've remained glad they did. Americans trusted that Congress because it included many wise, experienced leaders. Coming from different regions, these representatives shared valuable information with each other. During their time together examining the country's true interests, they gained deep insights. Since they had personal stakes in maintaining liberty and prosperity, their natural inclination aligned with their duty to recommend only what they genuinely believed best. These considerations led people to trust that Congress's judgment. Today, Americans have even stronger reasons to respect the convention's wisdom and advice. Many distinguished members of that earlier Congress, patriots whose abilities have since been proven and who have decades of political experience, were also members of this convention. They brought their accumulated knowledge and wisdom to the task. It's worth noting that not just the first Congress, but every subsequent one, as well as the recent convention, have agreed with the American people that our prosperity depends on our unity. Preserving this unity was the people's main goal in forming the convention, and it's the primary objective of the plan they've recommended. So why are some now trying to diminish the importance of our union? Why suggest that 3 or 4 separate confederacies would be better than one? I believe the people have always been right about this, and their attachment to unity is based on substantial reasons, which I'll explore in upcoming papers. Those pushing for separate confederacies clearly understand that rejecting the convention's plan would seriously endanger our union. This danger is real, and I sincerely hope every good citizen recognizes that if our union dissolves, America will one day echo the poet's lament. Farewell, a long farewell to all my greatness. Paper 3, How Unity Protects Us from Foreign Threats, by John J. To the people of New York. It's often observed that intelligent, well-informed people rarely maintain mistaken opinions about their interests for very long. This observation naturally leads us to respect the judgment of Americans, who have consistently believed in the importance of remaining firmly united under a single federal government with sufficient powers to handle national matters. The more I consider why Americans hold this opinion, the more convinced I become that their reasoning is sound and conclusive. Among the many concerns that wise and free people must address, safety usually comes first. Safety relates to many factors and can be defined in various ways. Right now, I'm focusing on safety as it relates to preserving peace and protecting ourselves from foreign military threats and influence, as well as from similar dangers arising domestically. Since foreign threats come first in natural order, let's examine whether Americans are right to believe that a strong union under an effective national government offers the best protection against foreign hostilities. The number of wars that occur will always be proportional to the number and weight of the causes that provoke them, whether those causes are real or merely pretended. So it's worth asking, would a united America or a divided America give other nations more just causes for war? If a united America would give fewer causes, then unity better preserves peace with other nations. Just causes for war typically arise from treaty violations or direct acts of violence. America has already formed treaties with 6 foreign nations, 5 of which are maritime powers capable of harming us. We also have extensive trade with Portugal, Spain, and Britain, and with the latter 2, we share borders, adding another complication. It's crucial for America's peace that we observe international law in our dealings with these powers. This will clearly be done more effectively by one national government than by 13 separate states or 3 or 4 distinct confederacies. Why? Because an effective national government will attract the best talent. While local influence might place mediocre people in state positions, national offices will require broader reputation and qualifications. With a wider pool of candidates, the national government will have better administrators, advisors, and judges than individual states. Consequently, its decisions will be wiser and more consistent, both more satisfactory to other nations and safer for us. Additionally, under a national government, treaties and international law will be interpreted and applied uniformly. With 13 states or multiple confederacies, rulings on the same issues would often conflict due to different courts, laws, and local interests. The convention wisely committed these matters to courts appointed by and answerable to one national government. Furthermore, present advantage might tempt leadership in one or two states to break agreements or act unjustly. But if such temptations don't reach other states and thus don't influence the national government, good faith and justice will prevail. The peace treaty with Britain demonstrates this point. Even if state leaders wanted to resist such temptations, local circumstances affecting many residents might make it impossible to prevent or punish wrongdoing. A national government, unaffected by these local pressures, would neither commit such wrongs nor lack the power or will to prevent others from doing so. Therefore, treaty violations and violations of international law, both just causes for war, are less likely under one general government than under several smaller ones. In this respect, unity better protects our peace. Regarding wars caused by direct and unlawful violence, one good national government again provides far more security than any alternative. Such violence more often stems from the passions and interests of a part, rather than the whole, from one or two states, rather than the entire Union. Not a single Native American war has been caused by our current federal government, weak as it is. However, there are several instances where individual states, unable or unwilling to control offenses, have provoked attacks, resulting in the deaths of innocent people. The proximity of Spanish and British territories to some states, but not others, naturally concentrates potential conflicts along the borders. Border states, acting on sudden anger or perceived interests, are more likely to provoke war through direct violence. A national government, guided by wisdom and prudence rather than local passions, can effectively prevent such dangers. Not only will the national government give fewer just causes for war, but it will also be better positioned to resolve conflicts peacefully. Being more detached and level-headed, it can act more thoughtfully than an offending state. State pride naturally makes them justify their actions and resist acknowledging or correcting mistakes. The national government, free from this pride, can more moderately and candidly consider the best solutions. Additionally, strong, unified nations can often resolve issues with apologies, explanations, and compensation that would be rejected if offered by a weaker state or confederacy. In 1685, when Genoa offended Louis XIV of France, he demanded their leader and 4 senators come to France to beg forgiveness and accept his terms. They had to submit to maintain peace. Would he have made such humiliating demands of Spain, Britain, or any other powerful nation? Certainly not. Paper 4, More on Foreign Threats, by John J. To the people of New York, my previous paper explained why unity would protect Americans from just causes of war with other nations. These reasons show that such causes would be both less common and more easily resolved under a national government than under state governments or small confederacies. But our safety depends not only on avoiding giving just causes for war, but also on positioning ourselves to discourage hostility and insults. We must remember that nations find pretended causes for war as often as just ones. As shameful as it is to human nature, countries typically go to war whenever they see an advantage in it. Absolute monarchs often start wars when their nations gain nothing, pursuing personal goals like military glory, revenge, ambition, or advancing their families or supporters. These motives, which affect monarchs more than republics, deserve our attention. But there are other incentives for war that influence nations as much as kings, and some of these stem directly from our situation. With France and Britain, we compete in the fishing industry. We can supply their markets more cheaply than they can themselves, despite their efforts to prevent this through subsidies and tariffs. With them and most European nations, we compete in shipping and trade. They won't celebrate our success in these areas because our growth necessarily diminishes theirs. Their interest and policy will be to restrict rather than promote our maritime commerce. In trade with China and India, we compete with multiple nations, taking advantage of opportunities they previously monopolized and supplying ourselves with goods we once bought from them. The expansion of our commerce won't please nations with territories near our continent. The quality and affordability of our products, combined with our proximity and the enterprise of our merchants, will give us advantages in their territories that conflict with the wishes of their rulers. Spain blocks our access to the Mississippi on one side, while Britain excludes us from the St. Lawrence on the other. Neither allows us to use the waters between us for mutual trade. From these and similar considerations, it's easy to see how jealousies and concerns might gradually develop in other nations. They won't view our growing unity, power, and influence, both on land and sea, with indifference. Americans understand that these circumstances, along with less obvious factors, could lead to war. They wisely recognize that unity and good national government are necessary to maintain a position that discourages rather than invites conflict. This position depends on having the best possible defense, which in turn relies on effective government, military preparedness, and national resources. Since everyone's safety depends on everyone's contribution and requires government to coordinate, let's consider whether one good government isn't better equipped for this purpose than any number of smaller ones. One government can gather the best talent from across the Union. It can operate on consistent principles, harmonize and protect all regions, and extend its foresight and safeguards everywhere. In forming treaties, it considers both national and regional interests. It can deploy resources and power to defend any part more effectively than state governments or separate confederacies, which lack coordination and unified strategy. It can place militias under one disciplinary system, and, by establishing proper chains of command to the chief executive, unite them into one effective force. Consider how ineffective Britain's military would be if English forces answered only to England, Scottish forces only to Scotland, and Welsh forces only to Wales. Imagine an invasion. Could these three governments, even if they agreed, operate as effectively against an enemy as the single government of Great Britain? We've heard much about Britain's naval power. Perhaps someday, if we're wise, America's Navy will command similar respect. But without a national government regulating navigation to develop seamanship and mobilizing national resources to build fleets, Britain's maritime strength would never have become legendary. Imagine if England, Scotland, Wales, and Ireland each had separate navies under separate governments. They would quickly become insignificant. Apply this to America. Divide us into 13 or even 3 or 4 independent governments. What armies could they raise and fund? What navies could they build? If one were attacked, would the others rush to help, spending their blood and treasure in its defense? Wouldn't they be tempted to stay neutral, enticed by promises from the attacker, or reluctant to risk their safety for neighbors they might even resent? Though unwise, such behavior would be natural. Greek history and others abound with such examples, and similar circumstances would likely produce similar results. But even assuming they would help an invaded state or confederacy, how would this aid be coordinated? Who would determine the proportions of troops and funding? Who would command the combined forces, and from whom would they take orders? Who would settle peace terms, and who would resolve disputes and enforce compliance? Such a situation would create endless difficulties. One government, however, overseeing common interests and directing collective power and resources, would avoid these complications and better ensure public safety. Regardless of whether we unite under one national government or split into confederacies, foreign nations will assess our situation accurately and treat us accordingly. If they see our government as efficient and well-run, our trade sensibly regulated, our militia properly organized, our resources wisely managed, our credit solid, and our people free, content, and united, they'll be more inclined to seek our friendship than provoke our anger. But if they find us with ineffective government, each state doing whatever seems convenient, or divided into 3 or 4 bickering confederacies, one leaning toward Britain, another toward France, a third toward Spain, possibly manipulated against each other, what a pathetic figure America would make. How vulnerable we'd be to contempt and aggression. Experience would quickly prove that when a people divide, they inevitably turn against themselves. Paper 5, Learning from History, by John Jay. To the people of New York, Queen Anne, in her July 1, 1706 letter to the Scottish Parliament regarding the union then forming between England and Scotland, made observations worth our attention. Here are some excerpts. A complete and perfect union will provide a solid foundation for lasting peace. It will secure your religion, liberty, and property. Eliminate animosities among yourselves and the jealousies between our kingdoms. It must increase your strength, wealth, and trade. With this union, the whole island, joined in affection and free from fears of conflicting interests, will be able to resist all its enemies. We earnestly recommend calm and unity in this weighty matter, so the union may reach a happy conclusion, the only effective way to secure our present and future happiness and defeat the plans of our enemies, who will certainly use their utmost efforts to prevent or delay this union. As noted previously, internal weakness and division invite foreign dangers, while unity, strength, and good government protect against them. This topic is extensive and deserves thorough examination. British history, which most Americans know well, offers valuable lessons. We can learn from their experience without paying the price they did. Though common sense suggests an island's inhabitants should form one nation, Britain was divided into three for centuries, almost constantly fighting among themselves. Despite having identical interests regarding continental nations, foreign powers used various tactics to keep their mutual jealousies inflamed. For generations, they caused each other more trouble than assistance. If Americans divided into 3 or 4 nations, wouldn't the same happen? Wouldn't similar jealousies arise and be exploited? Instead of being joined in affection and free from conflicting interests, envy and suspicion would quickly destroy trust. Each confederacy would pursue its narrow interests rather than America's common good. Like most neighboring countries, they would either constantly fight or live in perpetual fear of conflict. Even the most optimistic supporters of multiple confederacies can't reasonably expect them to remain equally powerful for long. Even if initially balanced, human ingenuity couldn't maintain this equality. Beyond local factors that naturally increase power in one region while hindering it in another, superior leadership and management would eventually distinguish one confederacy above the rest, destroying their relative equality. Whenever one of these nations rose significantly in political importance above its neighbors, those neighbors would view it with envy and fear. These emotions would lead them to support whatever might diminish its importance while avoiding measures that might advance its prosperity. The ascendant nation would quickly detect these hostile attitudes and develop equally unfavorable feelings toward its neighbors. Distrust naturally breeds distrust, and goodwill is quickly destroyed by jealousy and accusations, whether explicit or implied. The North generally has greater strength, and local circumstances suggest the northernmost confederacy would soon become more powerful than the others. Once this became evident, it would provoke the same reactions in southern regions that Northern Europe once caused in Southern Europe. The Northern Confederation might be tempted to expand into the more prosperous and milder territories of its southern neighbors. Those who study similar historical divisions will find ample reason to fear that these proposed confederacies would be neighbors only in geography. They would neither trust nor support each other, but would fall prey to discord, jealousy, and mutual harm. In short, they would place us exactly where some foreign powers wish to see us, formidable only to each other. This shows how mistaken those are who believe offensive and defensive alliances could form between these confederacies to create the unified will, military strength, and resources necessary to protect against foreign enemies. When did the independent states that once made up Britain and Spain form such alliances or unite their forces against foreign enemies? The proposed confederacies would be distinct nations, each regulating foreign commerce through separate treaties. Since their products suit different markets, these treaties would be fundamentally different. Distinct commercial relationships would create different interests and varying levels of attachment to different foreign nations. The Southern Confederacy might be at war with a nation the Northern Confederacy most wants peace with. An alliance contrary to immediate interests would be difficult to form and, if formed, unlikely to be honored faithfully. In fact, it's more probable that American confederacies, like European nations, would take opposing sides in conflicts. Given our distance from Europe, these confederacies would more likely fear each other than distant nations. Each would seek foreign alliances against its neighbors, rather than allying with them against foreign threats. Remember how much easier it is to admit foreign fleets into our ports and foreign armies onto our soil than to compel them to leave. Consider how many conquests Romans and others made as allies, and what changes they introduced into the governments they claim to protect. Let fair-minded people judge whether dividing America into any number of independent sovereignties would protect us from the hostilities and interference of foreign nations,